Finding life a bit complex? Confusing? Aware that your old strategies aren't working? Why not ask Pam and Marilyn? This is the Irreverent Therapists, and we're here to add some clarity, humor, and a bit of what might be considered blasphemy to your day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Irreverent Therapists. I'm Pam Hodeling, and with me, of course, is Marilyn Bradford. Hey, Marilyn.
Hey, Pam.
I am very excited because today we also have a special guest, Lori Stansbury. Hey, Lori.
Hi.
So Lori is an Access Consciousness Bars facilitator. She is a free spirit. She's an amazing event organizer. In fact, she and Marilyn have an event they're doing tomorrow, actually for the next 5 days in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And she loves to help people who are change makers in creating events and new possibilities for their business. So, Lori, we are very happy to have you on with us today.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Today we're going to be talking about what do you love about Overwhelm, and I'm sure
I can't do it. There's too much pressure. I have to get it right.
I'm sure no one listening knows anything about Overwhelm, and neither do any of us on the show.
Nope, absolutely not.
Overwhelm. No. So I'm going to read our little blurb. Have you made your life so complicated that overwhelm is your default position? Yes, this is a pretty crazy world, but what if overwhelm isn't a necessity? What if you can actually add more to your life with greater ease and come out of being the effect of the demands and obligations you feel swamped by? So that's our topic. I know I've had my moments of overwhelm recently. How about you guys?
Well,
no, definitely not.
Not ever. One of the things that I figured out is that overwhelm, a lot of it is just in your mind. It's like, and it creates me not being present. So what my latest overwhelm thing is, I chose to go to, last Wednesday I was also at Laurie's down in Albuquerque and chose to go to a event in Orlando, Florida. The next day, booked my ticket then. It was all EJG. I had to drive to Santa Fe, spend the night, drive back down here. And then in Orlando, I chose to go to an event, and that's coming up in, I don't even know, Houston after this weekend. And all of a sudden I'm going, oh my God, how am I going to get everything done? Oh my gosh, I only have 10 hours to do this, and then I have to do my laundry, and I'm going to have to stay up all night. It's just going to be awful, and I'm not going to be able to do it. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just in my head creating a fantasy scenario that it's going to be difficult. So how much is overwhelm a fantasy scenario that things are going to be difficult that we've adopted because we've decided that our lives have to be small and anything beyond this minimum that we've set for ourselves is going to be hard?
Okay, so I feel like you just packed about 6 different things into one sentence.
I know.
Let's break it down a little.
But everything that is can we destroy it and create it times a godzillion. I think that's important.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, old age, horse, poison. Yes. So first of all, what do you mean by a fantasy scenario?
Well, fantasy scenarios are things like, oh, look at that guy at Starbucks. I know we're going to get married and live happily ever after. Or they're like, that friend didn't say hello to me. I know she hates my guts. Actually, she's probably just jealous of me because I'm prettier than she is. It's where we go.
I love where your space you're functioning from today.
It's where we go off and create these, what Access calls pico universes that have nothing to do with reality. They're just that. They're absolute fantasies. It's like, yes, at 5 o'clock, a unicorn's going to walk into my living room being ridden by a dwarf, and we're just going to be magic and transcend. It's just, it's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous one. They're all ridiculous, but we don't see that the overwhelm scenario is also ridiculous. It has nothing to do with what is or actually being present.
Cool. And then how about, because in that long sentence you talked about kind of doing these fantasy scenarios to keep our lives small. So talk about that.
Boy, I really set myself up, didn't I?
You so did. We could do the whole hour on that one sentence.
Oops. Well, I certainly was taught that my life had to be small. Mm-hmm. It was like, you can't, and most of us somehow, well, you can't handle too much, Marilyn. You just have to manage and control and segment your life, and maybe you can have a relationship and a job, but, don't do too much. So I think we start out, a lot of us get these messages from our families, the school, the society, that our lives need to be small. And actually, there's a reason for that, because when your life is small, you're easily controllable. And I know I've mentioned that idea before, but I certainly think it's one reason that all kinds of people don't want us as kids to realize that our lives could be absolutely enormous because we would be out of control. So if you start with that idea, and we've talked about this before, in Access, your point of view creates your reality. So if you start with the idea that my life is small and I can't make it any bigger because I'm just a small, pathetic being and I have to manage and control everything, then when something else comes up that's bigger than the tiny little life you've decided that you have to have, you're going to go into overwhelm.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to pick up on something that you said, kind of come at it from a slightly different angle. Because when you're talking about manage and control, it's like, I think when, say you have a job and there's suddenly like, here's 5 more assignments that you're supposed to do today or something like that. I think, what people tend to do, we go into overwhelm, like, oh no, how am I going to do this? It's too much. And there's this point of view that if it's manageable, if I can control it, if I can, keep tabs on all the different pieces, then I won't be overwhelmed.
Yes.
And my experience has been just the opposite, which is when I'm willing to let go of managing and controlling, I can allow so much more on my plate and easily handle it. Whereas if I was trying to control everything, it's overwhelming.
Well, now you're probably going to raise a big question there, and people like, what do you mean if I don't control it?
Yes. Okay, so I will get back to that. But first, Lori, did you have something you wanted to jump in with here?
Well, yeah. What struck me in Marilyn's long sentence there was that idea of, sometimes when I go into overwhelm, my initial thing isn't overwhelm. My initial thing is like, oh yeah, I've got all these things I'm working on, I'm creating, whatever. And then I say what I'm doing to somebody and then it all contracts. And then I get my overwhelm. Like I actually adopt somebody else's overwhelm because they don't think that they could handle what I just created.
Oh yeah, keep yourself small to match everybody else's reality.
Right. Yes.
Wow.
What they think that they could actually accomplish. I don't know if you have a time for a little story, but I have years ago, before I had all the tools that I have now, I was in a training class like for an insurance license. So a heavy duty class that I had to study for the test and all that kind of stuff. I was taking evening classes on top of that. So my days was like, go from one place to the next place. And I scheduled a move, like just from one.
That sounds like you, Lori. I love it.
Totally me, right? Like from an apartment to an apartment. Like it wasn't like city to city kind of thing. But anyway, and I got it all done with complete ease. And people were looking at me like, how did you just do that? Like you even like slept 8 hours a night or 6 hours a night, like it wasn't like I was staying up all night. But I could, tapping into their universe, it was kind of like, oh yeah, people don't think that they can accomplish what they could actually accomplish if they stop thinking about it.
That's a key. Stop thinking about it. That's what I was saying earlier. It's all in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so here's my overwhelmed story. Because I usually do not feel overwhelmed at all.
No, you don't do that much.
Kind of end of July, beginning of August, I, went off to an Access class, and then I went to, a relative had died, and I went for a weekend trip to a memorial service, and I came back, and it's like, it was 2 weeks before, my daughter's middle school started, before my son started. He's taking a couple of classes at a college. And and there was all this things for the work I do that hadn't gotten done while I was at an access class at this family thing. And so it was like there was a huge, and there was a lot of time deadlines work-wise, and there ended up being a huge amount of stuff that has to happen to get these kids started in these schools, right? And so there was, like Marilyn, I don't know if I did call you or I almost called you, but I was like this anxiety panic feeling, which I haven't had for years and years and years. And I did a lot of who does this belong to?
Right.
But basically it was there was just so many things, and there was health form things, and in the middle of that, my son had to be taken to the emergency room. I mean, there was just all this stuff. And so I was in this space of, there's so much, and it's so much, and it's so much, and how am I going to do everything? And then all of a sudden, overnight, I changed from that to, wow, there actually isn't any problem here. And Marilyn, that was what you were talking about, like that universe I was in, it was created. It was, there's not enough time for everything. When I came out of that and was able to just look at it and go, there's actually no problem here. And then it seemed like I had all the time in the world and I was, doing things like, helping my kids sort out their closets and things like that would make our everyday lives easier. And I just knew that whatever was really required to get done would get done. And I mean, you can even hear it in my voice as I talk about it. I was like, about all that, everything to do. And then there's this space of being able to look at things and choose it different. Wow. And we're already at our first break. So we will be back in just a few moments with our guest, Lori Stansbury, to talk more about what do you love about
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business, and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business.
What if living didn't have to be so serious?
What if you could move beyond your problems with greater confidence and ease than you've ever imagined?
Throw your labels out the window and join the Irreverent Therapists for practical tips and a very different way of approaching the changes you would like to create.
Marilyn Bradford
and Pam Hodeling
have empowered hundreds of people to come out of self-judgment, quit looking to experts, and begin to create the lives they desire.
Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Irreverent Therapist Show.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back, everybody. We're the Irreverent Therapists, Pam Hodeling and Marilyn Bradford. And with us today is our special guest, Lori Stansbury. If you'd like to learn more about Lori, you can check out her website, lauriestansbury.com, and it's LauriStansberry.com. And you can also email her at Lori@newrealityllc.com. So, welcome back, ladies.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, one more business thing. I'd also like to say, if you're listening and you'd like to ask us questions, you can go to our Facebook page. Just go to Facebook and search on the Irreverent Therapists and post your question there for us, and we will address it during the show.
Yes, because I'm checking it, and we just had somebody ask how long it was, so I'm feeling very useful at the moment.
Cool. How long what was?
The show is.
It's an hour long.
Yes, well, I did say that.
Oh, well, I didn't know you said that on Facebook. Okay. So anyway, we're talking about what do you love about Overwhelm? And I know I was going on about something at the end of the last section, but I'm not quite sure where I was going with it. So let's move in a different direction.
Well, you know, part of the title, did you have something you wanted to say, Laurie? I'm kind of...
Well, I was just going to start, though, so what do we love about Overwhelm? What's so great about Overwhelm?
Like, why do we keep choosing it again and again?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people do it because they love trauma drama. Oh my gosh, you can't believe how much I had to do. It gives them something to talk about. Mm-hmm. It's sort of interesting.
It's funny. This is a little different because it wasn't necessarily, well, it's sort of Overwhelmed, but I can remember like a year ago, there was something like a school project that my daughter was really, like, she called me. I think she called me when I was in New Zealand. Like, you got to help me, help! What am I going to do for this school project? And I asked her. I was like, so is part of you actually really enjoying like being all upset and worried, about all this? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, enjoy that. And then if you get to where that's not any fun anymore, ask your dad or your brother to ask you some questions and help you change, shift out of that space into a different space. And she's like, okay.
Oh, that's cool.
But I think there's something about like the intensity and the, everything I have to do is so essential and important because I'm so stressed, and it gives me things to complain about and talk about and a way to connect with people.
Exactly. I was remembering when I was in junior high, and we played lacrosse where I was. The kids played lacrosse, and they put me on, some position I'd never played before. And I remember going, I don't know how to do this. What shall I do? This is such a challenge. And really, it was to just get attention. It was, I was pretending overwhelmed rather than going, oh, cool. And this is exciting. Wonder what I can do with this position. I don't remember the positions in field. It was field hockey. It wasn't lacrosse. But anyway, I think a lot of kids use it. We get that when we do pathetic, which is part of Overwhelm, that's one way to get attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in some families, it's the only way to get attention.
Yeah, exactly.
And is it somewhat not just the attention, but the help? Like when you're pathetic and overwhelmed, people want to help you. So is it a way to ask without asking? Kind of like being, sometimes people use being sick as a way to get attention, but to also get that help or that nurturing or whatever that they can't ask for. Are we trained then to go to Overwhelm so that people will help us? We'll offer, and then we don't have to ask for the help. People will be like, oh my God, she needs help with whatever, I can help her thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say all of these are dynamics that go on with Overwhelm. And, for a particular person at a particular time, it might be more the, getting sympathy or the getting help or I can remember, like in college, right? You have all these papers to write and these tests to study for and stuff like that. And the feeling of actually acing the test, like despite all odds,
right?
Overcoming.
Yet I'm succeeding. I managed to do it.
We get the superhero cape, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
When we've exploited all the different things that we have to do and made such a huge deal about them and overcome them all in one. Yes. Oh.
And how can you get all that attention if everything is just easy for you and you can do 17 different things at once?
Well, I was going to say, it's like I wanted to go back, Lori, to what you were talking about before, where, you're just kind of able to, add more in, right? And just be doing it easily until, like, you share with somebody and they're like, and their universe is like, oh my gosh, I couldn't possibly do all that. And then you go into, oh no, I can't possibly do
all of that.
It's
right.
Like, I just want to point out the difference in the energy between, that space of, hey, what else can I add? And of course I can add more. And what else would I like to create? And this can be actually fun. That space, versus what we've just been talking about of things like, well, going into overwhelm to get attention, or going into overwhelm to prove we can do it, going into, overwhelm for all, like, when we're talking about all that, frankly, the energy is just like, bleh.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is all of that. It's all proving something. It's proving I can, have people help me, or proving I can get the attention or whatever, rather than, Marilyn, what you talked about at the beginning of just being present.
Yeah. It's really, overwhelm is kind of other-oriented rather than, oh, what do I know? What's fun for me now? What's going on with me? Just being present and seeing what's going to work for you and what's not. And how much of overwhelm is also like we can't say no to things. I had to say yes to them. It's kind of a martyr thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me think of a few years ago at an Access Facilitators training, Katarina Wallington did a little class that was phenomenal.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so she's someone who does like huge. At that time she was communications coordinator for Dr. Dane here. And, in terms of like, thinking in terms of an amount of work, like insane amount of
insane amount of work.
Total.
And having to be able to just change gears and go from one thing to the next, depending on what's requiring attention, what requires energy now, tossing out what's not working, all that kind of thing. And so she was talking about how she creates. And, some of the things she said are tools that still I use and still, I come back to again and again. And one was to ask questions like, how can I add this in with greater ease? Mm-hmm. So, say someone does land another project or another, like for me, when I was talking about all this stuff for school and work and everything, it's like every time I get something finally settled with the schools, it would go wrong and something else would have to be dealt with. So it was this kind of like, wait, again, I have to do this again, which is not a question at that moment.
Right.
And if you've been listening to Marilyn and I, we're all about the questions. So if instead, when that kind of thing goes on, it's like, okay, so how can I more easily add this in? What energy, space, and consciousness can I be that would allow me to include all of this with greater ease? It's like that kind of question creates space from which you can then look and choose and prioritize and, what really does need to get addressed right now and what doesn't.
Yeah. And what's possible here? That's another one of my favorite questions. What's possible here that I haven't even imagined?
Well, and what I love about that, because I was thinking about that, how when we're in overwhelm, it's all about us. It's about us having to do something, and it's usually very individual and singular, like we individually have to be the ones to get it done kind of thing. And asking the question is inviting the universe too to contribute. Like, how could this be really easy for me to get it done? How can I get all this classwork, be in 5 different places at once, and move all at once with total ease? Like,
right.
It's calling in the universe. It's calling in the energy to create something with total ease. And what else is possible when we're in that overwhelm space? It's very, it's all on us to, with our human powers to get it all done. Not our universal power, our universal
superpowers.
Energy. Yes,
I
exactly.
love that you brought that up. Yeah, because it's like we get into this. I'm on. That's part of the overall. I'm on my own. I got to handle all this myself.
Right.
It's so noble trauma drama.
Totally.
Yeah, but it's like energetically, you can ask the whole universe to contribute to you and what you're creating, and whatever you've got going on. And
well, and there is that thing that they say: if you want something done, ask a person who's busy. Don't ask a person who's not doing anything.
Right.
Because someone who's naturally busy will figure it. I mean, they just know. Oh, yeah. Well, we can do blah 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 blah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
It's interesting that you brought that up, Marilyn, because I've definitely noticed that about me. I will get so much more done on a day where there's a few other things going on. And I know it's like, hey, I've only got a little bit of time. I got to just crank this out.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I have a whole day, it's like,
Yeah.
I could do this. Or I could...
Tweedledee. Yep.
I think I'll read my book for a while. No, I've noticed that too. I mean, I've had these like 12-hour turnarounds. This one was a little bit more, but not much. And it's just like, oh, okay. Well, okay, this has got to get done. What's possible here? And and I want to, when we come back, we're about to go to break. I want to say more about that and the head version of it versus another way to look at it, basically.
Okay. Well, you will have the mic when we.
I will have the mic.
We'll let you go first.
Yay!
And,
first.
everybody, we're about to go to break, and remember, you can go to our Facebook page, The Irreverent Therapists, and send us questions. Back in just a few.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Welcome to The Gathering Around My Kitchen Table on Equilarium FM, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join my guests as we integrate spirituality into everyday reality with vibrant conversations, inspired interviews, and my latest channeled guidance to inspire and brighten your day. I'm Claire Johnson, and together we'll be raising vibrations across the nations.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Irreverent Therapists. Today we have our special guest, Lori Stansbury, and we are talking about what do you love about Overwhelm. So, Marilyn, right before the break, you had something you were bringing up. So, if you remember it.
I do, actually. Isn't that amazing? No, I came in yesterday afternoon from Florida, and it was that thing I was doing, the workshop was just like such a game changer that I was like, I don't think I can do anything. And basically what I realized was my mind, once again, the mind is only linear. The mind is a terrible thing. Waste it. My mind had this whole thing. Okay, I need to get back up to Santa Fe from the airport. I need to stop and get, a little bit of food and some makeup, and I need to do laundry. And I had this whole linear thing. And when I got to my condo, I was like, I don't think I can do that. And what I chose, it's kind of hard to describe, but part of it was asking questions, as we always do. Okay, so truth, do I actually have to do laundry now? Could I sit for an hour, go to bed early, get up in the middle of the night? I was asking, and I realized that I didn't have to do it in a normal linear fashion. That's essentially what I did. I went to bed at 5:30 because I was just toast, got up at 2, did laundry, did all these other kinds of things. So one is getting out of the idea that this has to be done this way and then this is done and this. But the other was, and this was just like wow for me, is that I moved from my head to pictures. Okay. And once I got a picture of the whole thing, it's like Gary talks about, if you would like an autistic child, and I probably have those tendencies, to do something, you give them pictures. You don't tell them what the schedule is. So I got this picture of everything that I would like to have achieved. I don't know. The words aren't quite accurate, but I think you get what I mean. Before I left Santa Fe to come back to Albuquerque to do these classes, and all of a sudden it was just so easy.
Yeah.
It was like when you do it linear, you create these discrete events and you have to step into it, do it, then step out of it and see what the next event is. Step into it. But with the picture, it was like everything. Oh yeah, this, it all just, it was amazing. I could do it. It was like multitasking, seeing it as the multitasking thing where everything contributed. So anyway.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up because it's actually very much along the lines of what I had written down. Like, oh yeah, I want to make sure I mention this, which is asking questions and following the energy. And, because it's like what I've found is, when there's all these things, like Marilyn, you were talking about, laundry to be done and all this, for me, it's more often, here's a bunch of different projects and plus juggling the stuff my kids need and a few other things. It's easy to go to a space of, oh gosh, this is overwhelming. And that means I need to just focus on this stuff, which I've decided is important. And no question in any of that. And what I found is instead, if I start asking questions and like, what's required here and how can I do this differently that would create greater ease, or even how can I have more fun with this? Anything. It's like, it might be that cleaning out a closet is contributing the energy that's going to allow me to do the rest of it with much more ease.
It's illogical.
It's
Absolutely.
illogical. It's not linear, and it's never, now I'm going to focus and really buckle down and get this done. When you're coming from that space of always asking questions and looking at the energy and what's lighter and what's going to create more, then it might look very, very different than, for like just what you were talking about, Marilyn, of, getting up at 2 a.m. and doing laundry is very different than what you decided you had to do when you got home.
Right.
But I bet it was way more fun and easy.
It was way more fun in these. It was up for, I don't know, maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and got a lot done. And then I went back to bed.
Yeah.
And slept a little bit more. And when I got up in the morning, and once again, it was just this, it was an image, a picture of everything. And it all fell together. And asking questions, because if asking questions, what I find, allows us to get out of rigidity and solidification. And as you were talking about, follow the energy, which creates so much more ease. Like I had it on my list that on the way out of town, I was going to stop by Whole Foods and get these things. And it was about 10 o'clock, and I just was aware, oh, go to Whole Foods now. Okay. Went to Whole Foods, and then that contributed in a way to everything else being easy.
Yeah.
But if you stick to your linear mind plan, chances are it's not going to work out all that well.
Yeah. Well, and one thing we haven't brought up at all, which I think is a great tool to use for Overwhelm, is the Access Consciousness tool. Who does this belong to?
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's my mother-in-law's.
Right. And when you ask who does this belong to, you might have the awareness of, oh, this is my mother-in-law's. This is just how she functions. But it's not really about asking it to get that information.
Right.
It's asking it to have the awareness and to change the energy of things. And so, again, my kids are just back in school, and my daughter might be like, oh my God, I'm so worried about this and that. And I say, well, how many kids at school are feeling worried and anxious right now? Might you be picking up on that a little bit? And as soon as we have that kind of conversation, it's like everything in her universe relaxes because she recognizes it's not all mine.
She's been well trained.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you said tool of access consciousness, I really, the mantra or motto too, all of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. Just saying that a few times inside of an overwhelmed situation could really lighten things up too.
Yes, I've used that. In fact, when I'm driving, I notice when I'm driving or walking or doing something fairly mindless, I'll often just repeat that over and over again. Everything's the opposite of what it appears to be. Nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be, plus some clearings. And that actually boggles the mind enough that it can't go to these weird fantasies or start planning or doing any of those things.
Oh, I am so glad you brought that up. Because I'm going to use that with my kids tonight. I forgot about using that one. But go ahead, Lori.
Oh, I was just going to ask, is there something, this just kind of popped into my head around like the perfectionism of things? Like, is there something around overwhelm and perfectionism or doing things to somebody's standard?
Why, yes, I would say
that's a definite yes.
I mean, because in a way, perfectionism, Marilyn, that goes back to at the very beginning, when you were talking about the little worlds we create. Having been a poster child for perfectionism growing up, glad to say I'm over it. It's like, the whole need to do it perfectly is this point of view that you've taken on. One, that there is a perfect. Two, that you have to do it. And whatever you've decided, like, well, then people will approve of me or then I'll be okay or whatever. None of that is real.
Right.
And, and the same thing goes if it's somebody else's expectation or bar that you're trying to reach and thinking that you have to be that, meet those expectations. It's not actually real. It's just your internal point of view that needs to be.
Well, and a role. I mean, what a good wife would do or a good mother would do or any of that kind of stuff.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I think that is straight uncreated times Godzilla.
I think so.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, good, bad, POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Oh, and let me just mention, so we've used this a couple times now on this show. It's the access clearing statement, right and wrong, good and bad, POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. It's a way of like bringing up energy and clearing it and changing it. And you can find out more about the clearing statement at the website, theclearingstatement.com. So, Lori, were you about to say something?
Oh, I just, with that whole like perfectionism thing, or I just had the idea of the holidays.
Hello?
Did we lose you?
I think we lost.
You have to go there.
Oh, say it again, Lori. You're kind of cutting out.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that perfectionism or the expectation of what you do or what you have to do.
For the holidays.
Yeah, the holidays. Yeah. I have to, bake these cookies and do this and go to these people's houses and all that kind of stuff.
I'd add on to that holidays, weddings. I mean, there's all sorts
of family gatherings.
Yes. Birthdays.
Yeah. Really, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of overwhelm seems to come from buying into what everybody else has said is what we need to do, rather than actually asking a question like, what would work for me here?
Wow, what an idea. What a concept. Marilyn? Marilyn?
Yes? Can you hear me?
I couldn't for a minute. Yeah, I mean, I think, it's so different for people to ask from that space. So can you talk more about it?
Well, that whole idea that you should look at what would work for you is antithetical to what most of us have been taught, which is to consider yourself as selfish. What you really need to do is to consider everybody else. I think of Dr. Dane here, who's one of the creators of Access, talks about when he was a young boy, lived with his grandmother, he'd wake up in the morning and he'd go, okay, what do I need to do for my grandmother today? What do I need to do for my mom today? What do I need to do for my teacher today? And nowhere was he in the computation of his life. So it's this really insane thing of asking about what we can do for everybody else. But the thing is, if you're not in the computation of your life, you can't actually create and be the gift you came here to be. So it's another way that the world sort of keeps us small, keeps us from actually stepping out and being who we can truly be and being the contribution we can be. And I know we're about to go to break, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and on that note, we'll go to break now. Again, you can send us questions on our Facebook page. Just go to Facebook and look for the Irreverent Therapists. And we will be back in a few moments to talk more about what do you love about Overwhelm.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Irreverent Therapists. I'm Pam Hodeline, and Marilyn Bradford is my partner in crime. And joining us today is Lori Stansbury, our special guest. We're talking about what do you love about Overwhelm. So, you know what I was thinking about during the break is, we've kind of talked about, how people go to overwhelm, the kind of what is it that we get out of it, that we hang on to it, and some different tools to try to get out of it. But it's like, to me, Lori, this is what you were touching on when you talked about just adding more and more things, and it's easy. It's like, what's possible and what can we create when we choose to not go to overwhelm?
Good question. Cool.
Yeah. So, do you want to jump in or do you want me to keep it?
Well, that's brilliant, Pam.
Is that a good question? Keep going or good question? Let me talk.
Oh, well, I think, there's just so many things that, Marilyn really touched on that too, with that just being present with what are you creating and what is there to do or create, and asking the universe and everything around you for the energy and the support to create what it is you're up to. I love adding more things, and I definitely find that I'm way more productive when I do it. When I have a lot on my plate, I am massively productive and massively happy. Like I don't have time to be whining about, or excuse me, but whining about anything.
Truly. Yeah.
I just, I'm just moving, and I definitely ask the universe to make it easy for me, get me from A to Z with the greatest ease. And what would that take? And what would that look like? I find I really that aspect of being around people who have the same thing going on. When I put myself into situations where I have a lot going on and I'm moving, but the people around me are not, that's that. I don't know. Do we have, I know the who does it belong to thing, but is there something else that you guys would like to throw in there? Because that seems to be, for me, like the really sticky point where I then contract.
I think one of the questions I ask is whose universe am I in?
Yeah.
Am I actually in my universe? And what do I know to be true for me that I'm unwilling to claim, even if it contradicts everybody else? It's sort of that back to referencing yourself in the best possible sense, rather than doing what you've been told is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? This is another tool that Marilyn just popped up when you said that, cool. Marilyn, is just for me, just for fun, never tell anyone.
Yeah.
Like that. Do I actually have to tell everybody, everything that I'm up to? That then creates the lashback of you can't do that. Like,
that would be, no, you don't have to tell everybody.
Right. Right. No.
Yeah. I just remember, for me, one of the very first tools or ideas that I got exposed to at an access class was they said, really, if you have 27 different things going on at once, that's what you need to be able to be creating. And, it's like all of us on this call, those of you listening, you wouldn't be listening to Marilyn and I every week if you weren't the kind of person that the more you add on, the greater you can create.
Right.
And, so like, Lori, what if instead of telling someone everything you're doing, you give them 3 things?
Right.
Because for some people who aren't willing to be, kind of step into being everything that's possible with them, 3 things might be all they feel like they can handle. And, then there's going to be the people, well, okay, I can tell them 10 of the things. And that's actually inspiring them and inviting them to know, oh, I could do that too. And then there's the people you actually know you're doing 27 things.
I like it.
And hey, do you want to do those 27 with me?
Yeah. And, because one thing is when you get away from all the trying to so when you're being that space, Lori, of all these things that you're creating, is there any like managing it or controlling it, or is it, or are you more allowing all of this to have a life of its own?
Oh yeah, no, it totally has a life of its own.
Yeah, and then it's like from that space, then adding something else in is like, okay, cool, because it's all contributing to it's each piece is contributing to everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just more fun, frankly.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot more fun.
Way more fun. Way more fun. It's funny, actually, for me, when I don't have a lot of things going on my plate is when I usually feel the worst about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gives you time to get into the head again and ruminate about what a piece of crapola you are, or something, something totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
Well, another thing, Lori, because when you were talking about, okay, so how, when I'm doing all these things and creating and then I go to talk about it and everything goes, another thing that we talk about is creating your own reality, right? Yeah. So if you're willing to have your own reality, that you don't have to take on the points of view, the judgments of anybody else, then it's like, you can be like, yeah, I am doing these 27 things. And even though the people around you are going, well, I could never do all that, you're being the space of your own reality where that is easy.
Right.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I love it. This reality kind of has a really convoluted, messed up thing around being busy. Like there's people have to be busy, but then they don't want to be busy all at the same time kind of thing. Like it's a tug of war. Like busyness shows that you're like a value thing in this reality. Like, that you're sought after or something like that. But at the same time, everybody says they want their free time, or their like lazy time. So it's this kind of convoluted thing, which I think plays into the overwhelm piece too. It's like, I'm busy, but I'm not supposed to be busy, but I'm supposed to be busy, but I'm not, thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, that's just one of the many conflictual
paradigms. Absolutely.
Yay. Let's really mess with you.
Meryl, had to say something?
Oh, I was just, not really.
Come on.
What? Marilyn didn't have anything to say?
What? Marilyn didn't have anything to say? One of the things that another one of the tools that I use a lot, and I realized I was doing that a little bit last night, was if I have is the whole 10-second increments. Okay, I got 10 seconds to choose the rest of my life. What am I going to choose? Oh, to be happy. And that kind of dissipates all of the energy of overwhelm, because the energy of overwhelm is not, you can't be present and be doing overwhelmed. You have to be referencing the past and the future. You have to be on some kind of timeline. So if you just ask yourself, okay, I got 10 seconds to choose the rest of my life. What am I going to choose to be happy? Okay, that 10 seconds is over. Now what am I going to choose? I'm going to choose I think I'm sitting on the couch here. Okay, that 10 seconds is over. And people think, well, then you're not being responsible and you're not looking at what you have to do. But actually that question allows your awareness to expand so that you really are much more present and much more aware. And I was using that on the plane because I had decided that on the plane coming back from Florida, I was going to read the Foundation Level 1 that I'm facilitating this weekend. And my body was just doing some really interesting things. I did a lot of change this weekend, and I think my body was kind of detoxing. And thank you, universe, I was in first class. So I just kind of put my chair back and slept basically for about 2.5 hours of the 4 hours. I had to do this weird thing because I was on miles. So I went from Florida to Denver and then back to Albuquerque. But anyway, I mean, it's just asking those questions interrupts the brain and interrupts that whole idea of what we've decided is the way to do something.
Cool.
Mm.
So see, I did have something to say.
You did. Well, I want to make sure that we mention before we have to go here that that Lori is organizing an event for Marilyn.
Yes, she's an amazing organizer, among other things.
And that is, Marilyn is teaching the 5 Days of Change, Bars Foundation Level 1 access classes in Albuquerque, and that's starting tomorrow, right, guys?
Right.
So there's still time to get in your car and drive to Albuquerque.
Woohoo! Lori actually accidentally made an extra manual, so
There you go. There you go.
Put your name on it. It's for you.
And you can find out more about Lori and the organizing and different things that she does to contribute to Game Changers at her website, LoriStansberry.com. And you also have a brand new website that hasn't been launched yet, but I'm sure that your LoriStansberry.com will tell people how to get to that once it's live, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. So next week, we're going to be talking about, are you willing to be the mouse that roared? I think that's going to be a really fun show, too. And you have to check out my very cute mouse picture that I put on Facebook.
Pam does all the pictures, and they're really awesome. At the IrreverentTherapist.com.
Yeah. So, anyway, so that's it for today. You can find out about Marilyn and I at our website, theirreverenttherapist.com. Visit our Facebook page, called The Irreverent Therapist. Check out Lori and her stuff, and we will be back with you next week for Are You Willing to Be the Mouse That Roared? But goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.